I'm Jess Phillips, the Labour candidate for Birmingham Yardley. I've been the Member of Parliament here for 9 years, and all of that has been under 14 years of Tory rule. And so we haven't been able to do all of the things we would want to see done here, whether it's for youth services, whether it's more police on our streets, whether it's just being able to get a hospital appointment or get treatment. I remember what it was like to live under the last Labour government, and it was better. I have also spent my time in Parliament fighting and speaking up for the people of Kashmir, holding multiple conferences in Parliament with the activists from here, seeking self-determination for the people of Kashmir, just as I would want for every person here. I have spent the last year doing everything I possibly can for the people of Gaza. I have raised tens of thousands of pounds in aid for medical aid for Palestinians. I have been to Palestine a number of times and will be going back again soon. I voted for a ceasefire every time I was asked to. I have also rescued more than any other Member of Parliament. I have rescued Gazan people out of the war zone to get them here for treatment. And currently the only Gazan orphan to make it out and to get treatment in the UK was brought to this country by me. I have spoken against our arms trade to Gaza, and I will continue to fight to make sure that there is a ceasefire and that then we can start to rebuild. So the single biggest issue at the moment is the cost of living crisis and the housing crisis that we have in Birmingham. There is no bigger issue than people with houses that are not big enough for their families, that are damp and inappropriate, that are making them unwell. And what the Labour Party and a Labour government is proposing to do is to build many more houses to be available at social rents so that people can afford to live, just like my family growing up here had. They had good, safe, warm council houses so that they could thrive. The Labour Party will work to bring down people's energy bills because people are spending so much money on food, energy, every day in here, without fail, every single day in my office. I'm giving out food bank vouchers to people who don't have enough. This is not a civilised society that we currently live in, when people in the sixth richest country in the world don't have enough to eat. And so we have to make sure that those things are done. But I would say in the area that I represent, when you go past housing, one of the biggest issues, I mean, we have terrible proliferation and spread of unsupportive accommodation, HMOs springing up on every street that need regulation. But the mistrust in the police is part of the problem, because people call the police here in Yardley now and they're lucky if they get a response. There just simply aren't enough police officers to do the vitally important work. So people are seeing drug dealers on their street acting as if nothing's going to happen to them. And so the Labour Party has said that they will put on the streets 13,000 new police officers. And I will make sure that those police officers are coming here, that those youth services to stop kids going onto the streets and taking drugs will be built here. It will be nice to be a Labour MP under a Labour government and not just have to fight for things to stop closing, but actually now start fighting to open things like youth centres. Well, look, I mean, I've always been an opposition MP and I've always been fighting against a government that, I have to say, I don't think took the issue of human rights in Kashmir particularly seriously. I think we have to frame the Kashmir issue not just in the UN rules that have been broken, but also just from a human rights perspective. Now, I am a women's rights campaigner and have been all my life, and so I will be working with a global coalition of other women's rights organisations to raise the voices of the women in Kashmir, in occupied Kashmir, to try and, as we see with Gaza currently, the world doesn't look away when human rights abuses are occurring. We need to make sure that we are hearing those stories and that the world feels the same way about Kashmiri women being brutalised, sexually assaulted. We have to make sure that We have to spark an interest in this much more so. And I very much hope under a Labour government that more pressure will be put on whether it's the United Nations or India itself to look at the human rights records that have been going on in Kashmir. I mean, my top 5 priorities, I suppose, in the short term, I have to try and get the people in my area into the health care that they need. At the moment, you have people in Yardley pulling out their teeth in their living rooms because they can't get dentist appointments. I waited 19 hours in the local hospital with my father, who is in his 80s and has cancer. The very first thing we have to do is try and get our health services back on their feet. And then it will be it's much longer term, building houses or making sure there are homes for people. But I would say the housing and the quality of the housing in the local area would be another of my top 5 priorities. Safety and security, the policing of our neighbourhoods, the regulation of the kind of things that are allowed in our neighbourhoods, right from whether that's the HMOs that are springing up on every street or the kind of shops that spring up all along the Coventry Road that are selling laughing gas to kids or operating illegally and causing a blight on the neighbourhoods. So looking at how we regulate things better around here. But the very first thing that we're going to have to do after the election here in my constituency is we're going to have to unite again, because we've been a bit divided. And this election, I have to say, hasn't helped that very much. And there's been a lot of people wanting to froth up disharmony. I grew up here. I've lived here my whole life. That is not the community that I recognise. We are a united people, and there are new parts to my constituency that I have to get to know and love in the same way that I have with the other parts that I've had for 9 years. And so I'd say the very first thing I will do when elected is seek to get everybody together, regardless of their differences that have been brought about recently, and start pushing together again. I would say my record as the Member of Parliament in this area distinguishes me from others who are standing in this election, in that I can't walk down a street in this constituency without people approaching me and thanking me for the work that I've done for them and their families, for listening to them when nobody else would. I sound like the people who live here. I come from here. When people talk to me, they say, oh, I don't always agree with you, Jess, but you're one of us, and I know you'll always try for us. And I think that that is unique for politicians. But I would say on one of the biggest issues in this election, which has been Gaza, there isn't a single person on the ballot, not one, who has done anywhere near as much as I have. Certainly since the latest iteration of the war broke out. All the Palestinian people who live in my constituency and many in Gaza are hoping that people vote for me here, because I have rescued families of 16 with 1-year-old babies right up to grandparents. I have brought the only orphan child here to get treatment, and we are working on many more, and I will fight for a better scheme for those people. There's been a lot of hot air. There's been a lot of talk about Gaza by some of the other candidates. But that's all it is. It's just talk. Some of us have taken action.